geoscope for the new moon in Cancer, which happens on the 20th of July 2020. So in many ways, this particular lunar phase has astrological ties to the solar eclipse that we had at the solstice on the 21st of June. The only difference being that the new moon at solstice was in the early degrees of Cancer, and this is in the late degrees of Cancer. So this is about new beginnings, but what I've found with most of the readings are that this particular lunar phase is likely to be a story of kind of duality. So you probably will start the new moon working on or phasing out some of the stuff that came up for release at the lunar eclipse in your sign in Capricorn, and then probably as we get closer to full moon, you may find that you start to come into new energy, or it could be vice versa. But just, bear that in mind, because the Sabian symbol for this particular new moon is a Greek weighing twins in newly born twins on golden scales. So with the scales, we've got the sense of the scale of justice, as well as trying to balance the opposites. And then of course with the twins, we've got this idea of twinning, mirroring, and so on, pairs of things, duality kind of thing, things coming in twos. And this energy has actually been around for quite a while, so almost since Venus ingressed into Gemini, which was back in May, I think. We've had this kind of theme on and off, and I think it's likely to continue for the 4 weeks that follow this particular lunar phase. But anyway, let's get into a reading and see what else wants to come out for you. So I'll just take this opportunity while I'm shuffling to mention that I have actually just completed a new ebook all about geomancy. So if these readings have been intriguing you and you want to learn more, perhaps do some geomantic readings for yourself, then do have a look. The link is in the description box, and it is in EPUB format. And I'll also be linking at the end of this video, I'll link to the previous two readings, because I do think that this particular new moon is linked to the last two lunar phases that we've had, which were solar and lunar eclipses. Oh, interesting. And out jumps Capricorn. Okay, let's cut the cards. Right, so interesting. Okay, so you start off this lunar month feeling very focused on success, abundance. It's kind of go-getting energy, which is no surprise, Capricorn, because that is what you do best. So this is the sun in Leo, and it might be relevant that the sun moves into Leo a couple of days after this particular new moon. So Leo season may be an important time for you. Okay, so when it comes to family, home, and roots, there's a little bit of intrigue going on. So it's possible that around about this time and for the 4 weeks that follow, there may be some kind of unspoken issues or things which have been a bugbear for some time between you and another family member, or perhaps to do with a home that kind of comes to the surface and it needs addressing. So if it is to do with a home, it can often be about like sewerage, or to do with plumbing, or something underground like a basement. If it's a family member, it's probably someone you've got a long-standing kind of not feud with, although it can be a feud, but just sort of like a long-standing power struggle with. There's often these kind of undercurrents when it comes to family. Okay, now it looks as though long-term relationships are giving you a little bit of grief at the moment, or this is likely to be a theme during this upcoming new moon. So this is Saturn in Aquarius, and Tristia here is all about, as I say, grief, loss, suffering, a sense of disappointment. It's tears, basically. So perhaps things haven't been going terribly well with a spouse or a business partner. But there's definitely a sense here of disappointment or loss, or kind of, as I say, hurt feelings going on when it comes to a long-term partnership. Interesting. So even though we've got sort of difficulties with seventh house relationships, it seems as though when it comes to professional relationships, you definitely are on the same page as one other person. Conjuncture is about union, it's about harmony, it's about alliances, and it's usually between one other person. So interesting. It looks as though this month is going to be a major focus for you on career, where things are likely to go well, which may be why you start the month with Fortuna Major. But it looks as though family and one-to-one relationships might be a little bit tricky. But anyway, we can look into this in more depth once we have all the geomantic figures. So I'm going to pause the video quickly while I do those conversions. Hi Capricorn, welcome back. So I've done the conversions, and so let's not hesitate any further. Let's get into reading. So let's start with the new moon itself. So this new moon and new moons in general tend to start new cycles. So this will be a month-long cycle, not like the solar eclipse, which starts a sort of 6 months long cycle. So when it comes to new cycles, often I look for geometric figures like Caput Draconis to tell us what these are likely to be about. So you've actually got Caput Draconis, which is the north node of the moon, twice. So you've got it in your 3rd house and you've got it in your 6th house. So more than likely, what you will find once you've kind of phased out whatever this this sort of old energy is that you were working with at the lunar eclipse, is that you are starting a new cycle, either when it comes to work, health, schedules, rituals, pets, that kind of thing, and 3rd house stuff. So this is self-expression, communication. It's also often to do with either vehicles, so things that we use to commute within our local neighborhood, forms of transport, or it can be people that are in our immediate family or our immediate environment, such as neighbors, for example. So I do feel as though there is a new cycle starting there, and this may be a good thing. It may actually help whatever is happening in your 4th house, particularly if this new start involves close relatives such as siblings or cousins, for example. So it's possible that this will help to sort of resolve whatever this energy is. And then the 6th house is, as I say, work. So again, perhaps you have got a new job, perhaps you're working in a new way, perhaps, you know, you're working from home now, and you want to make it a permanent thing. That may be, you know, one of the ways that this is working. But certainly when it comes to your career, we've got the sense of conjuncture, which, as I say, is about coming together with others. It's about balance, it's about alliances, it's about cooperation. And this is a big theme for you, actually, because you've got it repeated twice in your outcome. So I do think that whatever it is that is starting for you is phasing you out of a cycle of difficulties in relationships. And here we can see that there are difficulties in 3 sectors of your relationship houses. 4th house, which is family. 7th house, which is partners, often romantic partners and business partners. 11th house, which is friends and kind of social groups. So it does look as though, you know, things haven't been so great for you, or are likely to be a little bit rocky when it comes to relationships. But on the plus side, things are likely to be looking up when it comes to, as I say, communication, movement, your outlook, the way that you, you know, you think about things, or the way that you express yourself, and when it comes to work. And it could be that improvements in communication have a knock-on effect, a positive knock-on effect on work and your everyday life, and sort of like rituals and schedule, possibly because of improvements in technology, you know, telecommunications, that enable you, for example, to work from home, or that kind of allow you to get around more easily, you know, with the lockdown restrictions easing, possibly this is what this is about, you know, it's kind of allowing you to get out again, to move around, to commute to work, or just to sort of actually do work, you know, if, for example, you work in the service industry. So those are definitely pluses coming out of this particular lunar phase. The other thing to say, of course, is that you do seem to be looking very positive. I mean, we've got Fortuna Major being echoed in your 12th house. So you're definitely feeling more positive. You definitely seem to be developing a more positive attitude towards the future. There's definitely hope here. Hope is definitely returning. This is the Sun in Leo energy, and it's really positive. It's success, as I say. It's kind of expansion. It's fortune smiling on us. So it's really about kind of reaping rewards and benefits for hard work or for difficulties in the past. So this could be where the karmic balancing is coming in. And, you know, apropos of that, not only Saturn but Jupiter will also be in this part of your kind of chart, because Jupiter is also in Capricorn. And within a week of this particular new moon, we have a sextile happening between Jupiter and Neptune, which is very, very positive. We had one of these back in February, I think around about the 20th of February, and this is the follow-up, and we'll have another one again in October. So this definitely, I think, is going to coincide with a kind of an upswing in your outlook and feelings of hopefulness about the future. So Pisces for you, Capricorn, sits in your 3rd house. So interesting that we have this new start here, you know, indicated by Capricornus, the north node of the moon. So definitely, if we think that that there is kind of good vibes happening between your 1st house and your 3rd, there's definitely an upswing in your outlook, because this can also be about your mental outlook, your kind of perception of how things are. Also on this date, the 27th of July, we will also be having a square between Neptune and Venus. Now, Venus is in Gemini, so this falls in your 6th house, and this is the 3rd and final pass of the square that we first experienced in May, then again in June, and now this is, you know, this energy phasing out. So even though it's more challenging energy, I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to take you by surprise. It's probably going to be something that you became aware of in either May or June, and you'll just be kind of learning the lesson, closing out the energy, or sort of doing whatever is necessary to kind of compensate for whatever that square was about. But given that we've got this new start happening for you in the 6th house, I don't think that it's going to be anything kind of major. It's something that you've probably now got a handle on, and know what you need to do in order to sort of like respond to it. So those are quite positive, you know, planetary movements to consider, and I think that this is the energy that is going to take us into the 2nd half of the you know, of the lunar cycle, and make things definitely gradually improve, because Jupiter and Pluto move quite slowly as planets. So I think that this energy will kind of have a trickle-down effect. It might not be one of those kind of dramatic da-da-da kind of thing. It might be something that is almost like sunrise. There's this gradual dawning, and after a while you suddenly realize that your outlook has changed. You're feeling more sunny, that circumstances have gradually improved, and, you know, things are kind of on the up. But I mean, that is definitely the case if we look at your 9th house. We've got Acquisitio here, which is, again, and we've got it repeated in your 5th house. So this is expansion, it is gain. So this can be financial gain. It can also be, you know, gain in the sense of a gain in position. 5th house is creativity, children, and kind of passion projects, hobbies, that kind of thing. And 9th house tends to be foreign travel, foreign relations, publishing, secondary or tertiary education, as well as kind of cultural interactions or cultural events kind of thing. So it can have to do with sort of religious or kind of high art or philosophy or the law, that type of thing. And things are definitely on the up there with Jupiter, kind of, you know, this Acquisitio is very, very positive geomantic figure. So as I say, I think that what's likely to happen is that you will start this lunar month one way and you'll finish it another. So you'll start really kind of being aware of these difficulties in relationships, but I think by the end of the month you will have pivoted when it comes to your point of view, and I think this is a direct result of some of the kind of the activations that we had during that lunar eclipse, that you will actually start to sort of see and manifest in your life, particularly that Uranus trine, where you kind of pivot, and this leads to a kind of a revisioning of reality, and with that comes you know, as we change our beliefs and our outlooks, so our reality actually changes, because we experience it differently, we interpret it differently, we approach it differently. And, you know, so when it comes to outcome, it's quite interesting, actually. I think this has more to do with career than anything else, and I think that's, as I say, where the major area of expansion is for you in this particular reading. So we've got conjuncture twice, which we have reflected in your 10th house. So this, I think, is about partnerships. Perhaps you get taken under the wing of a mentor. Perhaps a boss kind of favors you and decides to work more closely with you. Perhaps you go into partnership with somebody in business. But there does seem to be a kind of a public element to it, or a community element, because we've got this populace here, which is usually about groups or kind of community or diversity. And it's repeated again in your 2nd house, which is earned income, possessions, as well as self-esteem, self-worth, that kind of thing. So on some level, whatever this kind of union or alliance is that you know, has to do with your career, also seems to have a kind of public element to it. So perhaps this is a kind of a passion project, and you are looking at crowdfunding as a way to sort of get it off the ground. That may be why we've got populace here. It could also be that as a result of something that happens, you know, something that you share with the public, because this is often, you know, our dealings with the public. You get a lot of support from members of the public, and this kind of boosts your self-esteem. And of course, that potentially can be why we see this improvement in your outlook, why you're sort of feeling so positive psychologically, you know, by the time you leave this particular lunar cycle. Because definitely, I mean, your beliefs are kind of changing and expanding. There's this positivity, this optimism kind of happening about the world. So this can be expansion of your mind, or it can be expansion in terms of actually traveling. We've got this expansion here in your 5th house. So in terms of your creativity, so it can be about inspiration, for example. It could also be about potentially births or conception, if it's and of course this can be new relationships. So this can be about somebody new romantically coming into our lives. But it could also be about having a holiday, and let's face it, nobody's really been able to travel up until now. So perhaps you are having a well-earned break somewhere, going to, you know, a spa, or just sort of letting your hair down a little bit, because this is the house of joy and passion and sort of like fun. So lots that I said that is positive, and I think the focus for you, Capricorn, this during this lunar month needs to be career and work. That seems to be where most of the movement is happening, and where you seem to be kind of on the up. So yes, I hope this has been helpful. If it has resonated, do let me know in the comments. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, and if you're interested in my eclipse horoscopes, which last for 6 months, then do subscribe to my newsletter, which will give you access to the private members area of my website. But anyway, I'm wishing you all the best for this upcoming new moon. It's the last in a series, you know, of lunations that we've had in Cancer and Capricorn. So enjoy this kind of last hurrah, and I'll catch you again in a couple of weeks for my next forecast.